So, this is Cat the Catster, and while we wait to charge the video camera to do more filming on the set of Transformers, Robotech meets the Transformers, I'm going to do something over here for the other channel, the same channel, but this is going to be the other thing. This is going to be, a movie thing. I just decided to screw around. Mark Cards and I discussed dark comedies weeks ago, and decided to discuss comedies last Thursday. So I also went on some sites, mainly Rotten Tomatoes and two others, looking for the best comedies, in my opinion, and also in some other opinions. So what was the best comedy? If I was talking about how comedy works, comedy is best working when it's not punching down, when it's self-effacing, when it's the kind of when a comedian is making fun of other people because they're different, or their gender, their creed, their religion, that's not funny. Unless it's a cult they're making fun of, then it can be funny. They're making fun of a cult, because there are a lot of those. Then it can be funny. Unless they're making fun of themselves, or they're making fun of a situation. Because Ivan Reitman, who said that famous phrase, I think it was Ivan Reitman, said one of the not ready for primetime players said Saturday Night Live said that drama is extraordinary things happening to ordinary people, and comedy is ordinary things happening to extraordinary people. So they just take an ordinary situation and make it extraordinary. Rodney Dangerfield was self-effacing, but also seemed to go after the other people in his comedy routine. But he was clearly playing a character. He wasn't actually, literally that. It wasn't like Jackie Gleason in Honeymooners, who was playing essentially an abusive husband. That wasn't funny. Apparently for the 1940s and 50s, it was funny. Oh, look at how abusive this guy is. In the 70s, in a similar way, Carol O'Connor playing Archie Bunker in All in the Family was a spoof of the oafish father archetype of that time period, 30 years later. And there he played a character that was, and Carol O'Connor went on to play other characters that weren't like that, like a cop in a movie. But yeah, you have and Jackie Gleason went on to play a lovable villain in the Smokey and the Bandit movies. So he was, Buford T. Justice. Comedy's different. Chevy Chase ended up in his old age being kind of crazy, but in his early days he was playing some cool stuff. The first Belushi brother, who passed away of drugs in the 70s, who was in Animal House, he was very funny. There were numerous other guys, Steve Martin, all primetime players. You had Aykroyd, Murray, and those guys are all now old. You look back at it, some of them are dead. Some of them have passed away. Aykroyd and all of them, they're still around, I guess. But yeah, you have these people I grew up with, in comedy. Child of the 80s, born in 1970. And there's it's like, okay, I'm going to be familiar with stuff from the 70s and 80s, obviously. I'm familiar with comedy sitcoms and things like, the Brady Bunch, reruns of I Love Lucy, and reruns of countless other things. The Flintstones cartoon was big when I was young. The idea that and because my parents were older, I got the inferences that it was copying the Honeymooners, because that was also on in reruns. So yeah, the Flintstones is copying Honeymooners. It's just a little less bad. Actually, that infamous Chesterfield cigarette commercial aired back in the day on TV. The one that everybody finds on the internet. Oh my God, Fred Flintstone's selling cigarettes. They did that back then. People smoked in these movies. So it was weird. And the TV shows and stuff. It's weird. But they didn't know, there's product placement for Winston. Here you go. And it would be weird stuff like that. And the older generations, step siblings, or who are from the hippie era in the 70s, they're in their 70s now. I'm in my 50s. They were like, they liked stuff like Johnny Carson and David Letterman and all that. It had to be more sophisticated than I was as a child. I get it. I didn't particularly like the humor of Johnny Carson. He was mostly being mean, mostly doing parodies and caricatures, and mostly having having on characters that were famous in pop culture. He was a pop culture reference guy. He was technically, if he had a blog back then, they didn't have those yet, he would have been a blogger. And that's fine. They didn't market him as a comedian. It wasn't like a Bob Hope. He was a comedian. He was more like, he wasn't like the people he had on, like Dangerfield and Robin Williams and all the classics. He was a talk show host, and he was a promoter. He wasn't really meant to be a comedian. Jay Leno came later in my generation, so he was more of a comedian. And then after that, other people. Talk show host, and I remember this one story where he was. Then we get on to the comedies too, of course. But I remember one time he was doing an imitation of a character who was a Vermont-based sex therapist by the name of Dr. Ruth Westheimer. And she'd have there would be like commercials and radio broadcasts by this little Jewish lady from Vermont, and she would say, "Hello, you on the air, and welcome to Dr. Ruth Westheimer." Apparently, they really had a big deal about this little old lady. Like, she figures she knows stuff because she's old. Carson did a sketch in the early '80s. Parodying her. He dressed up like her. He can parody her. Looked more like Tootsie, but yeah. Which I think came a little later. But that's okay. Anyway, it was kind of like that. And he tried to do the voice, and his voice was lower than mine is now. And he was all, "Hello everyone, yeah, and this is Dr. Ruth Westheimer." You could probably find that on YouTube. It's like, wow, he could not do the voice. And I was a squeaky-voiced, crackly-voiced teenager. Probably about 12 or 13 when that happened. And I remember being really mad that he could not do the voice. And I had a squeaky little high voice, and I was all, "I can do that right now. Hello, you on? Yeah." And unknowingly, I made that more disturbing because this was a 13-year-old boy imitating what he'd seen on the TV. But I did not call the Dr. Ruth. No, I did not. Robin Williams, about a year later, did a sketch live at the Met at HBO. And HBO was a commercial-free cable service back in the day. Now it's called Max. Back then it was called Home Box Office. And cable was commercial-free. Because you paid for a subscription, why would you have commercials? Now that's how they did it in the 80s. And even though it started in the late 70s, it wasn't out here until the very late 70s. So, yeah. Anyway, so we had cable. And we still have, it's now Comcast. But back then it was Hearst Cablevision. And we had Robin Williams made fun of the sketches because he'd also seen Dr. Ruth Westheimer, and he could actually do the voice. And instead of wanting to do the voice, because he'd done it on Carson a few times, just to make fun of him, I did the voice, and then he did the spiel. He sounded just like her, and then he turned around and he said, "Well, the thing is, I said, Dr. Ruth, you on the air, I'm thinking, it's a little ridiculous, You don't want this tiny little lady telling you about this thing, how to do that, And then he busts into this imitation of a ginormous jive lady. And I said, you want a big, gigantic jive lady, Dr. Ruth. She tell you, small penis, can't churn butter with a toothpick, something like that. And she wants you to tell you how it is. See, that sketch is funnier because you're not punching down. You're saying, Robin Williams was saying, it would be funny if a juxtaposition, if Dr. Ruth was actually a gigantic, Bosom sort of character. That's funny. He's not insulting. He's not fat shaming the other lady. He's making up an opposite kind of moment. Pulling the humor out there, and he's saying opposite moment. This is funnier because of this. Eddie Murphy in Delirious, making fun of G.I. Joe characters and Mr. T and stuff. I can't say these jokes; they're dirty. I can't say them on YouTube. Go look up Eddie Murphy Delirious if you must. Raw was not funny. He was just mad at everybody. Now you have George Carlin, who I'm sure you're going to mention. What about George Carlin? He made fun of everybody. But George Carlin, the thing about him, well, like Louis Black nowadays, and like the late Gilbert Gottfried from the parrot Iago from. I knew him as Gilbert Gottfried as the parrot from Aladdin, of course. But but yeah, Carlin though, I knew him from SNL, Saturday Night Live. He hosted the first one, and then he went and did some others, and he did his own thing. And also, the kids might know him from Cars. He was the hippie guy in Cars. He was being ironic. He was playing his character. He's actually an anarchist, and he doesn't like anybody. So his shtick was that everybody sucks. Everybody. He's an equal opportunity. Everybody's no. So that's okay if you're a comedian. Everybody sucks. It's kind of like Lewis Black today. Everybody sucks. What Lewis Black does is he reads someone else's blog post from X, Twitter, and he's like, I'm going to read this blog post because it's funny. It's so pathetic. Ah. It's like, ah. I mean, Lewis Black is the guy who made the joke about, but the joke about, how can Donald Trump be president? He bankrupted a casino. How do you bankrupt a casino? You do that. And he said something about you could spend day and nights and for a year and crap the bed and eat there and make a profit. How on earth could you never set foot in the casino? You could make a profit. So anyway, comedies, and why the comedies are good. So yeah, what is comedy? Comedy is not pretty, as Steve Martin used to say. He always had gray hair. Steve Martin had gray hair from the moment he first on TV. That was gray hair. Yeah. I don't know what's going on there. The late Robin Williams, class act. Yeah. Yeah. So those are my list of best comedies taken from various sources. Child of the 80s, note that. I don't list any of the early 30s and 40s ones. That's one earlier 30s, 40s, and 50s one. Yeah, there's one of those in there. Let's see. There are others, I'm sure. But this list is my opinion. So some of it may be screwy. So here we have the first one on the list. It's not necessarily in order of number 1 to number 10, but it is almost number 1. Airplane, the infamous Zucker Brothers Airplane movie. Classic late 70s, early 80s comedy movie. This was a parody of Airport 77, which was a thriller movie, and they were spoofing it. And everybody, it's the George Carlin comedy technique. Everybody's going to be made fun of. Everybody. But also airlines and planes and stuff at the time period being funny. Nowadays, it's not funny because of events 20 years ago. But back then, it's quite funny. But yes, this was in the 70s, so maybe early 80s. I think it was 80, because they referenced disco, live forever then. It's quoted a lot in movies and memes, films and things, and people don't know where it came from. but it's from Airplane. If a bunch of guys run into a bunch of booths and they fall over and they do that, that's from Airplane. If they have an inflatable airplane pilot that comes up at the end, that's from Airplane. If they have a guy going, I picked the wrong week to stop drinking, I picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue, I picked the wrong week to stop doing coke, that's from Airplane. So there's a lot of lines that are in there. Yeah, from Airplane. Of disco is going to live forever. The airplane knocks the radio tower over. That's from Airplane. Not so much Airplane 2. That's, yeah. The sequel, Space Shuttle in Space 2001 parody was... No, not the sequel. Airplane 1, the plane twisted up. And it had a guy doing a Han Solo striker kind of guy. The next one is The Naked Gun. It's Mark Squares and I both agreed. Yes, The Naked Gun, Police Squad. They took Police Squad, which was an early 60s show, and they made a movie in the early 80s. It's one of the funniest comedy cop movies ever made. So check out this. Because I didn't include The Sting on here. It probably should be. Well, it was a little more subtle, that movie, I think, than to be on the list. Honorable mention for The Sting. So here we have Top Secret. After that, Top Secret was as a spy movie parody. All spy movie parodies, like also honorable mention of The Spy with I think Rebel Wilson and somebody else. That was funny, but I didn't list it as one of the best. So because basically this other movie did it better. Top Secret did it better. The Naked Gun has a lot of memes and jokes and stuff in it too. cooking the missiles going off, cooking the guy, the sex acts or missiles going off. They did that in 5 different movies, but Top Secret did it first. And Naked Gun also. No, Naked Gun did it first, and then Top Secret did. The Top Secret also had the infamous two people in the horse gag, but it was a cow in this one. They took it a step further and had a bull run after them and made it look like the bull is taking them from behind. It would have killed them, but it's a joke, so it's fine. So yes, yeah. The next one, which doesn't have a star, is Arthur, which was a Dudley Moore movie. He didn't do a lot of movies. And that was the one where he was a rich, spoiled aristocrat man, short Napoleon complex man. Even though technically Napoleon wasn't really that short, it was his detractors afterward that said, "Oh, he's a short little guy." They're making fun of him. But no, he wasn't that short. But the Napoleon complex idea stuck, so everybody thinks of it. So Arthur is playing a Napoleon character in modern times, who lives in a mansion, and a lot of memes have come from that movie as well. A lot of influence from Arthur. They've made some remakes. Arthur on the Rocks wasn't as good. Liza Minnelli or something. Yeah, and he learns to be less of a drunk aristocrat in the movie. There are some funny lines in it and some funny actions in it. The reason, again, why the movies like The Hangover and the Hangover series and the 40-Year-Old Virgin and stuff like that. Although the 40-Year-Old Version is quite funny. Or Anchorman as well, which was more like broadcast news. The reason those ones aren't on the list is because they were kind of derivative of these other ones. Arthur became kind of like that other one. So, yeah, if another movie's copying it, it doesn't count. See, unlike the Grammys and the Emmys where they're, "Oh, this song seems new because you pitch bent it a little bit. It was somebody else's song from like 30 years ago. No one's going to remember." And they did. The person would call you up and sue you for taking your song. But yeah, so we have Arthur, which is like The Hangover, but with different characters. Also, it's like Sideways, which was not on the list. Which is not a best comedy. The Little Miss Sunshine is not on the list, even though it's funny in parts. Oh, then we go on to which became that one became all those pageant kid things, copying it. A lot of them copy. A lot of people copy. So here we have Arthur. Barbershop. Now, Barbershop was interesting. Early 2000s, Barbershop movie. It had an interesting rejection by a fan base, in that the people making the movie and stuff were all, why are so many white people going to see a movie? It's because it was funny. It was extremely funny. It was like a good, like an Eddie Murphy style comedy thing in a barbershop, but set 20 years after Eddie Murphy wasn't famous anymore. Eddie Murphy had gone on to do a bunch of kiddie movies and things. He wasn't as famous anymore, and this other movie it picked it up. It picked up the jokes and stuff and said, "Oh yeah, let's Barbershop." Also, what wasn't listed was Big Fat Greek Wedding. I don't know why not, but I didn't list it either. But honorable mention. So you have and I didn't list Coming to America either, or some of those others, just because they're not quite. Yeah, they didn't quite want to go there. But yeah, Barbershop was funny. That's an extremely funny movie. They're set in a barbershop, and the juxtaposition is that these various barber characters have like a backstory, and they each have drama going on, and the drama is amusing to all creeds and colors and religions. It was funny. It's a funny movie. Just don't repeat any of the jokes, because white guys should not be repeating N-word jokes. Don't do that. So here we have, but yeah. So next one on the list was Beetlejuice. Tim Burton's Beetlejuice. A strange gothic movie with a emo goth girl in it and stuff, and the ghosts and the ghost parents and the whole thing, and comedy horror movie, dark comedy, kind of, but Beetlejuice. Yeah, and they spelled it Beetlejuice instead of Beetlejuice, the star. And it was influential. It became a cartoon, which is interesting because it was a rated R movie. Maybe it was PG-13, but still, it made a cartoon out of it. They did that a lot with cartoons. The cartoon became more successful than the movie, and they were thinking of a sequel to this movie. Now that it's on 30 years later, more than 30 years later, but I don't think it's going to work. What are you going to do? I guess they stopped production because of the strike on the sequel. We'll see. The next one is Beverly Hills Cop, another buddy cop parody movie. And this one more straight up buddy cop parody thing, trading places, that kind of deal. Eddie Murphy, Ivan Reitman, who that was? Judge Reinhold, somebody like that. Yeah, and it was a buddy cop parody movie. It's odd that they didn't mention Lethal Weapon in here, but that's an honorable mention for Lethal Weapon, which is descended from Beverly Hills Cop and stuff like that. Well, that was more of an action movie, though, I think, with jokes. Beverly Hills Cop is a straight-up comedy. In the beginning, he frisks the hoodlums and is doing goofy stuff, and it's a comedy. What's interesting is Beverly Hills Cop 3 was filmed partly out here in San Jose, Great America, Santa Clara. And like Flubber was filmed in San Jose, and Mad City, which was filmed in San Jose, Beverly Hills Cop 3 was filmed up to Great America. There were instances where we went by during filming, back behind the scenes. Didn't get to meet anybody, but oh well, it's cool. As for Mad City, I did get to see Tom Cruise pretend he was running a long way. I did get to see that. Got to see Tom Cruise. And there was a scene where he's supposed to run across the park all dramatically in slow-mo, to the courthouse, which was next to the library. It literally is next to the library. So he's running in slow-mo and across St. James Park. It was funny. Robin Williams filmed Flubber at San Jose State. I was there. But I was not there when they filmed it. I was there right afterward and just before, and basically waved, and that was it. So and Great America, they were not there the day I was there, but anyway, so that was the third one, and so we have. But I did get a chance in that other comedy movie, the Three Ninjas, the Kitty Ninja comedy movie. In the background of that one. So but that was different, and so that was not on the list, even though I was that one. Anyway, so here the next one is Beverly Hills Cop, the Blues Brothers. The Blues Brothers. My father didn't like the ending of this movie because, as a World War II veteran from back in the day, he didn't like that. It just becomes like a chase movie, and they break a lot of cop cars. Kind of like the end of Smokey and the Bandit 2. Smokey and the Bandit's not on this. Honorable mention to Smokey and the Bandit again. The Blues Brothers, not the sequel, the first one. The idea there is a juxtaposition. Aykroyd and the other guy, Belushi, are in that, and they're not typically blues people. So the joke is that they're not blues people. They wouldn't know the blues. Then they threw that on its head in modern movies like La La Land and Green Book, and said, "Oh, the blues and the jazz was a." They switched it. They switched the who invented that stuff. It was invented in the African American community. White people did not invent it. they were really good at it. They invented it. We copied them. Come on, copied them. Yeah, it was invented in the streets and stuff. We didn't have nothing to do with that. But that's a joke. The Blues Brothers, this is a joke that they're not. Yeah, they couldn't possibly. They're from like New York or something, or Chicago in this case. And interestingly enough, they're also from Michigan. All right, they're from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because a lot of the footage is Milwaukee, Wisconsin, near where they filmed Red Letter Media. So they did a review of the Blues Brothers, and they're like, how do these buildings look like they're from Milwaukee, Wisconsin? Because they filmed there because it's cheaper. It's like in The Bodyguard when they filmed like all of the school stuff near Lakeview High School and Dazzle High School. And then they went and then landed in Chicago, but they filmed all the suburbs in Los Angeles. They don't look anything like. I've been to Chicago, the Chicago area, and that area many times. I had an uncle up there, deceased now, and they have some cousins up there. And yeah, the suburbs there look completely different than they do here down in LA. So it was clearly they were LA suburbs. The houses are either quite a bit older, brick, or they're quite a bit newer. And yeah, it didn't look anything like those funky little ranch houses down there. I said, no, that doesn't look right. Little Victorians or something would have been accurate. They could have filmed in San Jose. That would have. They could have used Old Town San Jose. It probably would have looked closer. The older part, the Victorian houses. That would have looked better. They didn't though. I think they used the same house that they used in Mask. With the not Mask as in the cartoon from the 80s, but Mask, the one with Cher and the kid with a facial deformity. Yeah, that one. Same house. Or at least it looked like. Same set. But that movie is not on the list. Where have we gone? Went on to Big. Now, Big is controversial because if you think about it, it's kind of a messed up premise. It's a body swap movie. And that's a body swap movie. There was a recent body swap movie that got it wrong. But in Big, Tom Hanks' character is supposed to be like a 12-year-old boy. He gets transported into a body swap into an adult played by Tom Hanks. And he goes on an adventure in the story. It's a body swap story. And essentially makes love to a lady at one point. So technically she's a pedo because she didn't know he was really body swapped. So the body swap movie currently is Wonder Woman 1984 from 2 years ago. And the problem with that movie is that Wonder Woman, for some unknown and uncanny reason, wants her deceased boyfriend to come back, and there happens to be a wishing stone that this sort of Elon Musk guy stole. And she uses the wishing stone to wish her boyfriend to come back, but her boyfriend comes back in the body of Gal Gadot's husband. We don't know that at the time, but in the story, that's actually the actor is Gal Gadot's husband, and she's Gal Gadot. But from the perspective of the audience watching the body swap and then the making love and so forth, and putting Chris Pratt in there, Chris Pine in there, doesn't make sense because it makes it look like she creepily sucked this guy's soul out and put in this other guy so that she could have her boyfriend back and make love to him. This doesn't sound like something Wonder Woman would do. If it had been swapped the other way, like in Big, yeah. So it doesn't work. That's not on the list. But Big is on the list because it was funny. Yeah. Some of the Richard Pryor ones could be on the list too, but we'll get to that. But they're not. And there's some of them that were funny. I mean, Silver Street stuff. Let's see. We have not Superman 3. That was trying to be funny. It's not on there. The next one, you have Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which they've done 3 sequels. Just recently they did a sequel. Brought them back after 25 years. Almost 30 years. So these two rocker stoner dudes do the Back to the spoof. I guess Back to the Future isn't on here because it's technically not a comedy. It's an adventure movie. There's not really... Back to the Future probably should be on here because it does have funny scenes in it. So I guess we'll put Back to the Future on here. They're like, okay, because that was the one before. Back to the Future on here. Science fiction, but it's comedy. So, and then we'll say, the Bill and Ted, Excellent Adventure, time travel stoners, basically, an adventure. I don't actually see them doing any stoned, but yeah. Okay, The Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club is a classic 80s movie that has been quoted infinitum by ex-gen people, such as myself. When this movie came out in the 80s, it was in theaters and then on video, and we quoted it mercilessly in class, and it tended to get us in trouble and sent to the counselor. But yes, also we quoted Pink Floyd's The Wall quite a bit, but that was not a comedy. No. That was not really a comedy. No, that was more of a drama with songs in it. A musical drama. Yeah. With some ironic comedy moments, such as I Don't Need No Education, which is a song they played all the time. But yes, then we come to a Fast Times at Ridgemont High. The Breakfast Club. Breakfast Club was funny because they it's a John Hughes movie. They chose to film. Does Home Alone count? Home Alone's not on the list for some reason. Home Alone probably should be for honorable mention because the whole premise that Macaulay Culkin was never in trouble for any of the crazy stuff that he did in his movies, and other movies got in trouble like The Program and The Pagemaster and stuff. But for some reason, when Macaulay Culkin did it, nobody paid it. Nobody, yeah. So, which Macaulay Culkin pointed out on Red Letter Media when they did a review of one of the later movies. Yeah, I never got into trouble for this. Don't do this at home. Yeah. So yeah, Breakfast Club, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, mainly a comedy. Amy Heckerling. Yeah, Breakfast Club. Yeah, and then they got to Fast Times at Ridgemont High has a lot of quotable lines in it. You probably there's a totally awesome line when he throws the hot coffee on the bad guys, which is silly. It's a scene that does not make any sense. The bad guy would have killed him, but it's a comedy, so fine. Why not? Hot coffee comes from there, not from GTA. It's from that movie. It's from that movie. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. The mall, the Fast Times Mall, is this mall in the LA area, and it was a mall that was famous, and what was hilarious is just to be funny. Years ago, there was a Mexico mission trip from the church. We went down there, and the mall was still there. It was the 90s, and we're all. Apparently, they called on ahead and they said, "Oh yeah, come and pick up one of the kids at a." So they went down there, and we were all college age, and there were adult chaperones and whatever. And there was one of the other college students said, "Oh, I want to meet at the mall where the pick me up at the Fast Times Mall." Okay, we drove over to the Fast Times Mall. Got her. It was funny. Oh, not the Back to the Future Mall, the Fast Times Mall. Okay. But yes, and then there's Dogma, which is Kevin Smith. That's probably one of his most movies. Although Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, honorable mention. Clerks 2, honorable mention. Not so much Clerks 3. It was too much of a drama. It was a drag, man. What are you doing? Let's be funny. Okay. Fine, but it was a drama. Yeah. So yeah, Dogma is the one with George Carlin as old, man, in it, a crazy priest. So yeah. And of course the quotable Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, in which he's the rules of the road. Look it up. I'm not going to repeat it. But yes, Dogma has the kissing the golf clubs thing. They only a pastor would bless his golf clubs to help on his golf swing. Yeah, something like that. That was in there. There's some quotable Dogma stuff. There's Ben Affleck as an angel, which is hilarious. Yeah, that's great. Ben Affleck. The Batfleck. And Matt Damon. That's where that comes from. The line from Team America World Police is stolen from Dogma. Yeah, so. But yes, that's where they got it. So you have Clerks, which has all kinds of quotable stuff in it, including the infamous Death Star workers on the Death Star, that were underpaid workers on the Death Star. And all those other lines. A line which they retconned in the Clerks 3 when they were like, "Oh, we can't mention that because Disney will sue us." Like, no, you can mention it. Disney will not sue you. We know you're in legal. Come on. But yes, Disney will not sue you. Okay, and then there's the weird combination of La Cage aux Folles and The Birdcage. La Cage aux Folles is the French version, Birdcage is the Robin Williams remake. He also played in Tootsie, which is also on the list. This is some kind of a drag queen thing. These three movies. And Mrs. Doubtfire, again, is a drag queen. He was very good at playing a drag queen because he's a hairy guy and he looked nothing like a lady, so that was the joke. So he's not making fun of them, he's playing against type. He's playing fun of them. So those movies, Tootsie's on here, and The Cousin Foles, and yeah, Mrs. Doubtfire. They're all on there, so those are three of them. Then we come to Blazing Saddles. Blazing Saddles is a weird experience, and what's weird is they did an animal anthropomorphic cartoon a year ago where they ripped it off as a kung fu movie, and originally they were going to call it Blazing Animals or something like that, which would have been a better title, because then they would have said, okay, we are ripping off Blazing Saddles verbatim with cartoon characters, so want to call it Blazing Animals, that would make more sense. Instead they called it something goofy about a dog or something. Yeah, but Blazing Saddles is a weird cowboy movie parody. Mel Brooks, and he's making fun of all the classic Mel Brooks. He's making fun of the whole genre. That at the end, the bad guys. There are so many quotable lines from there, and so many lines you shouldn't quote too. Gene Wilder's in it and all that, and they have it ends with a song and dance because they literally break the fourth wall, literally, and run out of the studio into another part of the studio and end up in the dance number with the Fred Astaire type of characters from the 40s dancing around and stuff. It's just insane. So many lines in there. What's funny is they would often dub these shows on television and put them on TV. And the Breakfast Club had like a lot of swearing from Judd Nelson. Judd Nelson, who played Hot Rod in Transformers '86. Judd Nelson, who was in the Breakfast Club before Transformers, and he was cussing up like a sailor, right? So he had so in the TV version they would dub out his swearing so that he would say something weird like "flip you" and "darn you" and stuff. And also in Blazing Saddles they dub out everything. But the weird thing they did with that one, with the TV version, is they turned the fart contest into a burp contest, which made it even weirder because it wasn't a burp contest. I don't know why. No. In the 2000s, the early 2000s, we were introduced to Sacha Baron Cohen, who has gone on to make Borat 2, which was very funny, honorable mention, and The Dictator and all that. Borat, the original Borat, is a movie you don't want to quote from, but everybody did. But it is very, very naughty. Is just he's making fun of the boorish male archetype by saying he's from Kazakhstan and he just doesn't understand. And he was like goofy, coming to America type of thing. Yes, yeah, they're kind of cribbing that, but he does it in such a weird, offish, break the fourth wall way that it's original enough that it needs to be one of them. Just because, just because. But yeah, there's a lot of jokes in there that the Kazakhstans didn't like it. Kazakhs didn't like it. Okay. Here's another classic that's inspired a bunch of other stuff. I didn't put Ron Burgundy on here, the Ron Burgundy movies, Anchorman, because this movie is what Anchorman is based on. It's called Broadcast News. They did a news parody spoof of the craziness that goes on in the newsroom and made it insane and broke the fourth wall and did other things and had it be like, oh, this newsroom is actually insane behind the scenes. Parodying and spoofing real life newsrooms. Some of them, they are pretty insane, but they didn't film when they were insane. But yes, Broadcast News, a very funny classic movie. I think the late 70s, early 80s when that came out. Broadcast News. And then comes National Lampoon's Vacation. Probably one of the titular National Lampoon's not ready for primetime players movies. Based on National Lampoon's magazine, which funded it. It's a classic magazine, sort of like Mad magazine, before Mad magazine. Back then it was political, and also then Alfred E. Newman was a parody of a number of politicians. They didn't say who. Even the guy who doesn't, the old guy, they asked the guy about Mad Magazine and Alfred E. Newman, and he said, I didn't really base him on anybody in particular. You could say it's Nixon. You could say it's this other guy, but it's not. Didn't base him on. So the guy that did the show said, no, it's not based on. But it's just a character that's, a number of other characters together. And his brother, like, is based on his brother. So he was the first Fred. He based his character on it. But yes, back in the day. Yes, Fred is not on the list. The Freddy movies are not on the list. Because that would be, no, it's not funny. Vacation. It was the one where Chevy Chase and crew go on a vacation, cross country road trip parody movie. They have a car that they found, a 70s era station wagon car, the Roadmaster, that they found this car that's ridiculously overdone. They thought it would be funny to drive around in the car. The car shows up in the Vacation remake 3 years ago or so with Christina Applegate in it. The remake was not as good. The remake was just kind of gross and messed up. The cannibalistic cow eating meat, the cesspool they fall in, and that wasn't funny. The earlier one was funny. The idea of being gross with something is not to over gross it and make it like. Except for the fart scene was funny because it was not that long. So you just have the scene like in Vacation, where Chevy Chase is eating the sandwiches and wondering whether they're wet. And the joke is that this is Chevy Chase in the movie. He goes like, oh my God, the dog peed in the picnic basket. That's a joke. They just go to the next thing and they're like, ah! That's the joke. So that's all. So it's like, ah. And then Chevy Chase is a meanie, so he ties the dog to and then the dog died. Oh no. This is a messed up movie. But yes, they're all horrified. He's horrified. Because he didn't think that he tied it to the car, and it's kind of a messed up movie, but it's one of the classics. So, next one I put on the list was Ghostbusters. Now they recently re-released Ghostbusters 30th anniversary. Saw it in the theater again. Ghostbusters is a witty movie. It's not a movie where you laugh out loud, except for a couple scenes like They Slimed Me in the other one. And the egg one and Zool and the Keith Master. There are a few laugh out loud moments. But it's a witty movie. It's clever. It's trying to be clever. Stripes is also a witty movie with some jokes in it. Like they do the clown car in Stripes. Also should be on the list. Stripes. Also Bill Murray. They have, and Ghostbusters, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd. Not ready for primetime players, National Lampoon, basically. And they're coming out of the thing. And in Stripes, there's a scene where the guy, Bill Murray and the girl are in a footlocker at the end of the bed, and there's no way they could have been in there. The joke is it's a clown car, and they both climb out of the footlocker. There's a bunch of other scenes in there. But yeah, Ghostbusters has the infamous Slimer. Ghostbusters was extremely influential. There were 2 cartoon series based on it. There were innumerable ads and promos and things. There was a sequel that wasn't very good, Ghostbusters 2, in '89, and then there was a third sequel in 2016, which was extremely controversial for no apparent reason other than, well, the ladies they got weren't as funny as Bill Murray and the others, and Bill Murray has a cameo. They switched it, and all these right-wingers freaked out over this movie. And it's not a bad movie, it just isn't quite a Ghostbusters movie. What I would have done with Ghostbusters 2016 is I would have just said it's another I would have just like rejiggered the beginning of it to say like, okay, the other Ghostbusters happened, and these are just new ones. Then you can just kind of skirt the issue that these are new ones, and the other Ghostbusters happened, and we get a similar place and all that, but they happened, and yeah, so things happen there. They sort of fix it in Ghostbusters Afterlife, the 4th sequel, which I think came out in 2019 or 2020. I think it was 2020. And in that one, they 2020, 2021, somewhere around there. Yeah, it was right after the pandemic, I thought. Because it was in theaters. Yeah, so in Afterlife, they imply that the old firehouse was actually occupied by another group. So they became a Starbucks or something after that. So they basically take they make the joke that the 2016 movie did happen in the universe, but that it's now a Starbucks because they failed, which is funny. At least they understand their own universe. It became a Starbucks. Butter. Ew, little smarmy at the end. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Andy DeVito and a bunch of other people. Again, another witty movie, kind of mean-spirited witty movie, dark comedy. They're all jerks. That's the joke. Okay. Then there's Dazed and Confused, which was a 90s sort of trippy hippie movie, said to be taking place in the 70s. It's a trippy hippie movie. Where there's just stoners hanging out. So inspired many other stoner comedies. But it was inspired by the stoner comedies, such as the infamous Chich and Chong movies of the 70s and 80s. So it was inspired by those. So, yeah. And I didn't list any Cheech and Chong movies on the list, but they should get an honorable mention. They are classics. Cheech and Chong movies, the first three, at least. Up in Smoke, Still Smoking, Cheech and Chong, first movie, second movie. They should be on the list as honorable mention. Yeah, because, yeah. Then we have an old one that was a classic back in the day, Dr. Strangelove. Everything I Want to Know One Day. The Bomb to Love the Bomb. Yeah. That is an influential movie. Every movie about nuclear wars and crazy cowboys and things, and a guy riding a missile. That's from this movie, Dr. Strangelove. Also, the guy trying to salute like the Nazi Sea Kyle salute, and his arm keeps going. His robotic arm keeps going. Yeah, it's this crazy movie, of which the trans tech character Strawberg is modeled after Dr. Strangelove. So, in case you didn't know, that's where that voice comes from. But yes, then we come to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And back in the day, when you turn 18, back in the 80s, the 70s through the 80s, through the 90s, through the early 2000s, whenever you turned 18, you had to go to somebody doing a live cast of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So I turned 18, and there happened to be a live cast of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And my sister took me to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show at midnight, and it was great. And so, yeah. Back in the day, in 1989, and but yes, and then Mark's Cards or John, he went to see it when he was in '92. I took him to '92. Yeah, he took me to see it. Yeah, because that's right, because he could drive, and I wasn't going to drive at night. I was going to go to Rocky Horror and see the live cast. So we went and saw the live cast, and then years later. Another generation of the players and stuff from the church. One of the characters, I call her Drea, she ended up being in the cast of the San Jose live show of the Rocky Horror Picture Show for like 10 years. So that's cool. She was actually in the cast, which was awesome. And what they would do is they do a live performance imitating the movie. Because the movie itself, if you watch it on video, is not that funny, but it's the live cast, like spoofing it. And you might think, oh, that's like Mystery Science Theater and Riff Tracks. It is, but Mystery Science Theater and Riff Tracks was thinking of the Rocky Horror Picture Show live cast when they did their show. And they're like, we can do that with horror and science fiction and stuff and everything. And then they did. So they're copying Rocky Horror when they do that. There are some live casts you can see online nowadays. When you have the internet on YouTube, you can see some of the live casts with a movie playing in the background. It's like watching a riff track. So you can see those. Those are fun. Rocky Horror, influential. Let's Do the Time Warp Again. Transsexual Transylvania. Great songs. Tim Curry, who wasn't actually a drag queen, was playing one. He's hilarious. You see him back in the day. He's great. Yeah. Well, the next one we have Little Shop of Horrors, which is Little Shop of Horrors, based on earlier Little Shop of Horrors. Supposed to be 1960 as Rick Moranis. A bunch of Steve Martin is a cameo as an evil dentist. Highly influential in the 80s movie, horror and comedy. Sing along. It has a hilarious performance. James Earl Jones or somebody is playing the plant. I think that's who that is. There's a giant potted plant that grows into a big plant, eating blood, and it turns into and it wants to eat everybody. So it wants to like. It's a really strange idea, but yeah, it's a sci-fi horror movie comedy with singing, right? And the alternate version, the plant takes over the earth. It's funny. The plant takes. But yes, and then there's Ferris Bueller's Day Off, another influential movie. Any kind of movie where a kid plays hooky from school, plays sick and plays hooky, and the sister and the mother and everybody know he's off playing hooky. Gotta get back before the parents get home from playing hooky. They wreck an awesome red car, but it's not the same red car as in the other scene. They threw another car off the bridge, so don't worry, they didn't wreck the Ferrari. They threw it to the junker off the thing. But yes, my father was horrified that they threw a car off the thing. But yes, yes, the infamous look that the sister gives at the end. I was like, oh yeah. I'm the youngest of 5, 3 sisters, my brother, and yeah, I know the look. But yes, so here we have. I never played hooky though, because at high school we went to South San Jose. So I went to South San Jose, friends. So school for kids with learning disabilities and stuff. So yeah, there was no playing hooky. You get on the bus, you had to be on the bus, and you had to get off the bus. No. There wasn't even any escape really. There was an escape place, but it would be Carl's Jr. and then we get caught down the street. But yes, we're going to go to Valley Christian, which is across the street. It's a rival school. But yes, Pine Hill and Valley Christian, and now Pine Hill is a sports academy of some kind where apparently they pretend to teach ninja stuff, but it's still there. I'm assuming it's for little kids. Ninja Academy, yeah, daycare thing. Maybe it was just a thing they were doing that back in about a year and a half ago. So we have I saw it again about a year and a half ago, and that's what it was. It was a daycare Ninja Academy thing. Strange. There was a karate guy at Carl's Jr. who was actually somebody I knew of. I figured it out on the way out. I was like, God, that's Peter. Pine. Oh shit. Why was I doing karate moves? I don't know why you're doing karate moves. Jill's little brother. What's wrong with you, dude? I graduated with Jill Rossman. Why is little brother out there too? Anyways, and Tim Cantrell and a bunch of other people, Marty Brown and a bunch of other people. Graduating class was very small though. Mark Scars was a little later, 92 from Silver Creek, because he went off to Silver Creek. Anyway, so we get on to more comedies. Yeah, Ferris Bueller. A Fish Called Wanda, a classic British movie. Also similar to the Monty Python stuff, but it wasn't quite. It had some of the Monty Python people in it, so it had a little bit of elements. I think one of the writers was a Monty Python guy that spun off from it. There's like a there's a scam going on involving a fish, a sting kind of thing. Yeah, that's why the sting is not there. It's kind of similar. But yeah, there's a dog scene with a. So there's As Good as It Gets, get an honorable mention, but I didn't want to give it as a dog scene too. It's similar, horrifying. But yes, it's called one. The joke is there's this prize fish that gets stolen, and then they have to get it back. So then there's Mel Brooks' A History of the World, which should be on the list but wasn't on the other list, which is weird. History of the World, Part 1. Mel Brooks. The spoof of history in general in the world. Then we have Spaceballs, which is a science fiction and comedy. Spaceball. Star Wars parody. Lucasfilm was freaked out and said, no, don't do any merchandising for it. So they made fun of the merchandising during. But it's really, why did Lucas care at that point? It was like 85 or something. They weren't doing any more Star Wars movies at that point. And then we come to Galaxy Quest, which is a parody of Star Trek. And recently, Galaxy Quest has had a lot more notice and memes and things, including two of the Galaxy Quest characters coming to me at a convention in full costume and regalia, thinking, because I was dressed as Captain Kirk, going, yeah, Captain Kirk. They did it a couple of times. It's funny. They were the actual two characters. It's kind of funny. In costume. So we were all hamming it up. Great. So yeah, it's still around. It's a parody of Star Trek. It's a parody of sci-fi. Didn't put Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy the movie because it was just weird and somewhat, yeah, it just wasn't as funny as the books were. And then there's the odd movie. I think Hoffman. Yes, Hoffman. The Graduate. The Graduate is yet another witty movie, which ends with a witty ending, a witty, sarcastic '70s ending. This guy's supposed to be getting married, and he doesn't want to get married to the girl that they set him up with. He wants to get married to this other girl, and spend the whole movie trying to get away and from the wedding thing, and they run away at the end. And the joke at the end is that they've run away, and then they realize that spoiler. Oh, come on, for a '70s movie. He looks horrified at the end, and he's kind of like, oh no, what have I done? And that's the classic ending right there. That's an ending people have spoofed again and again. Sometimes not realizing that's the joke. Sure, that's what this time the director, Scorsese. Sure, that's what the director was on about. I'd say that's the whole point. Is he realizes, what have we done? We ruined our lives. We're going to run off and be hippies now. I'm sure that's the joke. It's got to be. Even I got that back then. It's like, oh, that's the joke. I didn't quite get it completely, though, at the end. I must say, Mark Scarz explained a little bit about that. But yes. After watching it years later. There's Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams. Yeah. Some elements of that. He's spoofing MASH in a weird way, because MASH, the book, was a spoof of Vietnam, not Korea. And the TV show MASH was a spoof of Vietnam and not Korea. But they set it in Korea, and it lasted for 13 years on the TV. MASH is one of the comedies on the list as well. MASH is not a comedy, it's a movie, though. It's listed as a comedy, but it's not a comedy, it's a drama. The movie is a comedy, is a drama. The movie's a drama. There's no jokes at all in the movie version. Except for the ironic song, which was done by the son who was make a depressing song. And they took the lyrics out and they just made it the tune. Played it for the MASH TV show, which was a comedy with some dramatic elements. That's what confuses people. That's why it ends up on the comedy list, even though the movie was a drama. And same Good Morning Vietnam turns it on its head and says, no, it would be funny if the announcer from MASH was funny. And it was Robin Williams. Yeah. Mrs. Doubtfire is the one where Robin Williams goes in drag as his grandmother to try and be with his kids. He's getting divorced. It's kind of creepy, but there are some funny scenes and it's quoted all the time. Yeah. A more modern one, Grand Budapest Hotel, one of the Wes Anderson movies. Also on the list is Rushmore, another Wes Anderson movie that I put on the list. It wasn't on the list. It should have. First of all, the Grand Budapest Hotel is a parody of hotel movies. It may be confused for a couple of other hotel movies, including one about some old ladies that are in a hotel. It's not the same one. It's not the same movie at all. And then there's Rushmore. I'm going to jump down to Rushmore because it's also Wes Anderson. And that's a movie about a quirky kid in the 70s or 80s. It's supposed to be the early 80s. Does a Vietnam spoof at the end because it connects to the Vietnam story. And quirky sort of Asperger's spectrum kid. Also, Napoleon Dynamite, which is, I didn't put on the list, honorable mention, is a kind of a ripoff or spiritual sequel with a similar Aspie kid in it, which is fine. But it's not best of. Napoleon Dynamite's not as funny as Rushmore. It's not as funny. I mean, you get tired of John Hader saying "gosh" repeatedly. That's his catchphrase. Although a liger is actually a real thing. They've cloned. Yeah, so. But that's a joke from the ligers. But yes, the Great Dictator was a Charlie Chaplin movie with a parodying Hitler, making fun of Hitler. Stripes, I mentioned that before. Yeah, funny military movie, spoofing military movies. Stripes. Groundhog Day, classic movie everybody seems to mention now. About 30 years old. Now it is. Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. One of his last comedies before he got all serious for like 20 years. But yeah, Groundhog Day, he plays a misanthrope who does the Scrooge thing like over and over and over again until he learns something. So that's that, and it's based on something else. Yeah, Christmas Vacation is next. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, also as a classic. Yeah, not so much European Vacation. There was like 2 or 3 funny jokes in that. Yeah, mostly Christmas Vacation. You have the goofy Christmas adventure thing. It's a tree. The tree scene is funny. The thing that's in the beginning. Don't remember much else about it except, and then the goofy the hick neighbors. They tried a sequel with the hick neighbors and it didn't work. It's funny. They tried a Vegas Vacation one. We were part of that, but yeah, that didn't work either. Yeah, we were there just after they filmed that one in Vegas. We didn't know till it came out. Also, Viva Rock Vegas with we did know about that one. Oh, the Flintstones, Viva Rock Vegas. Yeah, that was a good one. We knew about that one. But yeah, we were not in that one. We were not in either of those. Yeah, we were not in. Let's see. Harold and Maude. The movie that was shown in high school was at high school. It still is high school. A lot of these, The Graduate was in high school too. Harold and Maude was a. You might confuse it for that other Maude TV show if you were from the 80s, 70s and 80s, and you might confuse it for Mickey and Maude, which was a TV show, but they're not anything similar. It's the names. Harold and Maude was about a young man just out of college who really likes death. He falls in love with Ruth Gordon, who is like, oh my gosh, late 70s. And they have a big thing, you know. They have a kinky relationship. It's funny. She's a cougar. She's not a gilf because that would be gross, but yeah, she kind of is. Yeah. Okay, but that's the joke. I'm sure that's the whole joke. And then you have Heathers, which is also a dark comedy on the list. Has since, in recent years, in the recent decades, more play because of people copying the premise, scary movie type premise, Death Day type of premise from Heathers. People doing the thing. But yes, that's the one with the high schoolers who they're all the Heathers in the high school plot to revenge on the bad guys. And they are the bad guys, technically. And then we have Hot Fuzz, which is a buddy cop movie with Simon Pegg, spoofing basically Hot Shots and The Naked Gun and a bunch of other stuff. Mainly Lethal Weapon, though. But yeah, then we have This Is Spinal Tap. And although you might not know what This Is Spinal Tap is, a British rocker comedy, you will know it goes to 11. I'm sure you've heard that meme before. It's from This Is Spinal Tap. It goes to 11 because there was a scene where they had an amp, and amps only go up to 10. So this amp that only goes up to 10, and they were trying to convince that salesman was trying to convince him, the rocker guy, that this amp actually goes to 11. It goes to 11. And that was the joke. But yes, that's one scene from it. The spoof was that they were. Then we come to The Jerk, a movie that could not be made today. Steve Martin plays a white guy in the rural South, raised by African American people, and uses their lingo as he travels across the country to come to California. Wow. Yeah, they just couldn't do that today. It would be like, wow, okay. Well, the movie is aptly titled. He becomes a circus performer at one point and a bunch of other stuff. And the classic meme about the shit in Shinola, that is from The Jerk. That is where that's from. Not a Fiddler on the Roof line, that's from Fiddler on the Roof. But The Jerk is shit, so. So the dad tells him the difference between dog poop and Shinola. Yeah. Because they're both kind of dumb. So the joke is they're dumb in the story. They're hicks. They're not, the hick people in the story. The joke is, they're not smart. And then somebody mentioned recently, it was the Simon Whistler show, mentioned Kung Fu Hustle. And this guy on YouTube, a YouTube blogger, does a bunch of shows on YouTube. And he mentioned Kung Fu Hustle was weird. And that he'd seen it when he was 13. And I commented on it. I said in the comments, well, yeah, because he had said how old he was earlier in an earlier video. He'd said he was 37. So he's roughly one of my nephew's age. So, yeah, pretty much is my nephew's age. So he goes, yeah, I saw this when I was 13. And I was like, wait a minute, I saw Kung Fu Hustle, funny Kung Fu parody movie. And yeah, that came out in the mid-2000s. So you weren't 13, dude. You were 17. Okay. Yeah, which is probably why he remembered it differently, because he probably remembered the wrong movie, The Hustle, which came out in 2003. Yeah, wrong movie, but yeah, okay. A different movie. The Hustle was about these rapper guys that are trying to get on a road trip. Different movie, not on the list. But Kung Fu Hustle is on the list. Oh. Let me come to the classic other Zucker Brother movie, the Kentucky Fried Movie. Classic. Yeah. Now that movie is a Saturday Night Live sketch, one after the other. It's like an SNL sketch. It's kind of like broadcast news meets Saturday Night Live. And all the jokes are like silly, like going to make fun of different commercials and ad stuff. In the same way that the Life of Brian and the other ones made fun of that kind of stuff. What was that? I'm trying to think of the other one that I'm leaving out. There's another one I'm leaving out. Not the Life of Brian. There's another one about Life of Brian's here too, but thinking of this other movie that was wasn't History of the World. What the hell was that? Oh, okay, found it. This should be on the list too. Monty Python and the Meaning of Life, where John Cleese and crew are acting out. His wife act out a sex scene. It's all dry and British. It's funny. Meaning of Life. There's usually a comedy that has one or two really funny scenes, and that was one of them. And then the Kentucky Fried Movie has the scene with this element that your carbon element or whatever doesn't. Without that, your house will be destroyed and stuff. But also they do a scene with the lovemaking as a joke, and they have like the newscaster like on the screen break the fourth wall and see the people making love and go like, oh God, ah. That's pretty funny. But yes, they don't really show it; they just imply it. So you have then you have a movie that shows it. You have Female Trouble, John Waters' Female Trouble. In terms of his gross horror comedy, dark comedy movies, Female Trouble is one that actually has a plot. Desperate Living does too, and it's one of his good ones too. Honorable mention, but Female Trouble is the one that actually has a plot of a message about fashion people are weird, more so than Desperate Living, where it's just making fun of the homeless and in a semi-trans character who's actually crazy. She's not. It's not that she's trans; it's that she's crazy. So yeah, they're all crazy in that one. In Desperate Living. And then they eat the queen at the end. Yeah, this is horrifying. So Female Trouble, and that one, Divine, the giant drag queen character who was so famous that even Disney wanted her in a movie. True story. They wanted this. They wanted Glenn Milstead, who played Divine. Also, Married with Children wanted Glenn Milstead. They're all like, we want to put you in Married with Children, but he died before they could put him in the show. But he died of obesity. But he had before that, Disney was inspired by Divine as well. And the character of Ursula in The Little Mermaid is supposed to be, the director even said so, yeah, it's supposed to be on after Divine from Pink Flamingos and Female Trouble. Maybe Female Trouble. So Female Trouble inspired The Little Mermaid, which is hilarious. And they got this other lady to play The Little Mermaid, the new one. It's like, not quite right. Not quite right. But yeah, the original, whoever played Ursula, the Sea Witch. The Little Mermaid. So yeah, but yes, next one is Pink Flamingos, which is one of the grossest. Female Trouble is gross. It's a horror movie, but it's comedy. Female Trouble is one of the grossest movies you will ever see. It has bestiality, horrible scene with a chicken. You don't want to watch that. And it has Divine eating dog do for art. It's infamous scenes in this movie. Yeah, definitely NC-17. Watch at your own risk, or don't. But yes, there are some funny scenes in it. And it's often quoted, and people don't know what they quoted it from. Like when they go, "You are no longer alive," Connie and Raymond Marvel. That's from this movie. From Female Trouble, though, the line that people quote is the one at the end. He says, "Who among you wants to die for art?" That's from that. Who among you wants to die for art? Later copied in Zoolander. But John Waters did it first. Did a bunch of comedy movies. Polyester's okay. Serial Mom's okay. Pecker is funny. Cecil B. Demented. That's the one we were on. Oh, that one is. It was funny, but it's not on the list. It's a theater movie one. Re-inspired it, basically. That's the one with the Forrest Gump spoof in it, where he's like, this really sucks. But yeah, and then there's, okay, A League of Their Own, the Madonna movie with as a ladies' baseball team during the World War II. It's supposed to be World War II. The ending scene where it's all poignant, and they got a bunch of old ladies to play them. Poignant ending scene. So yes, The Life of Brian is this parody of making fun of the time of Christ kind of thing, joke. Romans Go Home is from that. That kind of thing. But yes, yeah. Monty Python and the Holy Grail, of course, there's a lot of lines from that one. Like the, he's got your arms off. What are you going to do? Bleed on me? That kind of thing. Kind of graphic. No, that's silly. He was wearing a tub for a night out around his waist. Let's see. Mentioned Bash already. Clueless and Mean Girls are kind of together here. Clueless is sort of a 90s take on Fast Times. I think it's about the same lady. So yeah, it's high school, and it's like in the 90s, so it's extremely self-aware, but also selfish. The characters are all have nose jobs. There's a scene where they all have nose jobs. It's funny. Yeah. Yeah, and Mean Girls, which people quote from now. That was with Lindsay Lohan and some other people. I mentioned Animal House. That's another National Lampoon's movie. Where the second half is kind of darker and more twisted, and they get revenge on the evil local senator guy by building a tank machine and crashing a parade, which is not funny, but just kind of mean. Yeah, they tended to be like that. The best part of that movie is Belushi ad-libbing in the cafeteria, and doing the other. And there's the guy who's screwing the rich lady, and the other guy who accidentally screws the girl pretending that she's old enough to be in college. That was just disturbing. But yes, there was a scene like that in Revenge of the Nerds too, but different. Essentially. Yeah, it's not good, but the meatball scene. Ah. But yes, and then there's the producers, which is the one where these guys try to fleece the older people out of their money and inheritance and stuff so they can run a movie studio. That's classic. The Odd Couple, same guys. There's been heavily influenced. The producers influenced the player, influenced a bunch of other movies, Hollywoodland, a bunch of other movies. Yeah, so The Odd Couple did as well. The Odd Couple influenced Grumpy Old Men. The Odd Couple influenced a TV show called The Odd Couple that was on in the 70s and 80s. It launched careers of major actors who are still doing stuff like in the Superman movies and stuff. Yeah, so it did a bunch of stuff. Yeah, so yeah, the late Pee Wee Herman, the late Paul Rubens. We got to mention Pee Wee's Big Adventure because that was Tim Burton again from Beetlejuice. Yeah, Pee Wee's Big Adventure, but not Pee Wee's later adventure when he was older and older man and he was done with movies and they caught him apparently, with his Pee Wee out at a sex shop. No, but no, not nowadays. But no, but not after the movie, but many years later. But yeah, if you go to the sex shop and you're famous, go there when no one else is around. But yes, and then there's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which is again about some kind of a scoundrel character who is riding the rails and stuff with Steve Martin's character. Steve Martin's character and John Candy, I think is who it is. Johnny Candy's the guy, and they're going on and it's a sort of a Scrooge type movie as well, so it has Christmas elements. Ends up taking in the guy at the end. In case you didn't notice, he takes in the guy at the end because he's been making up the whole story because he has no family. So he's actually not a scoundrel so much as he's a misanthrope. But yes, and then there's Rushmore. But yes, then we come to The Princess Bride, heavily quoted all the time. Actually, the part about the I have that, you have that, but you want me to think that I have that, you have that, I have this, the poison chalice, and back and forth, and then he ends up poisoning himself. Or the part where he goes, "You have killed my brother, and now you must prepare to die." Yeah, that guy. So that movie's been quoted so many times. It's ridiculous. So many people have named their kids after the characters. Oh my goodness. Then there's Raising Arizona. Late 80s movie, I think. Yeah, the joke is that these two bad guys want to get the money from the ransom or something from some rich dude, but they end up like hauling their kid around Arizona or something. The kid's like doing all this crazy stuff and they can't control it. And it's an odd movie. What was the thing of ripping off? Yes. Shaolin Soccer. I'm not sure why that's on the list. But it was fun. It was a goofy movie with the Shaolin monks playing soccer. It's kung fu, like, with soccer. Somebody Calcat oriented thought that. School of Rock, which is a very Dan movie. Nephew movie. But yes, yeah, you have Jack Black doing stuff. And you have Nacho Libre. That's not on the other lists, but I thought that was a very funny movie. Kind of the luchador thing. Very different. Yeah, that was very American Pie would be on the list as a Dan movie, but it's like, well, honorable mention for American Pie. None of the sequels, though. Not really. Let's see. Yeah, Shaun of the Dead. Another crime movie. Maybe The End of the World, the other one. World's End. World's End with all the bars are the same. But yeah, Shaun of the Dead was a zombie movie parody. Then you have Superbad, which my sister hated because it was basically the live action version of what she did as a teenager. And not really, but kind of. So she didn't like it. Like, who just sold the rights to my story to the Superbad guy? Like, no, they didn't though. They did, yeah, it's a coincidence. Or maybe when you know when maybe it's not very original, the stuff you did. Maybe everybody did it. Maybe they all did it. Yeah. There's something about Mary, although Mark's Cards didn't like that one because it had like one or two jokes at the end, but it's on the list just because like in the 40-year-old version, yeah, the joke is the end of the movie, but still, it's like, well, the fetishist scene it made the movie, I think. Yeah. It's rated R for good reason. Didn't list Four Weddings and a Funeral. Didn't list because that wasn't that funny. It was okay. Didn't list Fierce Dangerous Creatures, the sequel to Fish Called Wanda. Tootsie and Trading Places, which they couldn't do now either. Trading Places is a movie where the rich white guy trades with the poor black guy, and they trade places. That was they can't do that now because that's not as PC, I guess. I don't know. And if you can't define woke, then don't try. No, woke is just a right-wing archetype to not take responsibility for their racist comments. So. Anyway, so comedy movies, yes. That was my review of all the comedies ever. But yeah, I don't know what you want to do with this video, but do something with it. Comedies, yeah.